Have you ever imagined a child who has nothing in his hands? No home, no money, sometimes not even food. On a cold street in London, a small boy sits quietly watching people pass by. No one stops. No one asks if he is okay. Most people would think that the future of that boy was already decided, a life of poverty and anonymity. But history often begins in the most unexpected places. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. That little boy would one day become one of the most famous faces on earth, a man who could make millions of people laugh without saying a single word. His name was Charlie Chaplin, and his journey from the poor streets to a legend of cinema is the story we are about to explore. In 1895, London was a great city, but it was also very harsh for the poor. In a cold corner of that city, a boy named Charlie Chaplin, only 6 years old, had to face a life of hardship. His clothes were old and thin, his shoes were worn out, and his stomach was often empty. Charlie sat watching people walk past him, gentlemen in fine coats and women carrying shopping baskets. But no one noticed him. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. To them, he was just a poor child among thousands of other poor children in London. Even at a very young age, Charlie understood that his life would not be easy. Yet those difficult days quietly built strength and determination inside him. Charlie's life became even more difficult when his family began to fall apart. His father left the family when Charlie was very young, leaving his mother to raise Charlie and his brother Sidney alone. His mother, Hannah, was a singer who performed in small theaters around London. She had a beautiful voice and always tried to work hard to support her children. But those small performances brought in very little money. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. Some days the family could eat enough, but many other days they had to live with very little. Even so, Hannah always tried to make her children feel loved. In their small room, she told stories, sang songs, and tried to bring joy to the 2 boys. But the harsh life of London was still waiting ahead of them. One day, the family's already difficult life became even worse. During a performance, Hannah's voice suddenly weakened and she could not continue singing. For a singer, losing her voice was almost the same as losing her job and her livelihood. After that incident, Hannah was invited to perform less and less, and eventually she could no longer work at all. With no income, the family quickly fell into serious poverty. Who is less than #0. 7# is greater than meals became rare, and paying the rent grew more and more difficult. Charlie was still too young to fully understand everything, but he could clearly feel the worry and exhaustion in his mother's eyes. The lives of the 2 brothers were entering a period filled with uncertainty and hardship. When the family no longer had enough money to survive, Charlie's small family was forced to leave their home. They moved from one rented room to another, staying only a short time in each place. Sometimes they did not even have a place to live and had to sleep in temporary shelters around the city. Charlie often wore the same old clothes every day, and his shoes were so worn that they were almost falling apart. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. When he went near crowded areas, he could hear other children laughing when they saw him. The teasing made Charlie feel ashamed and lonely. But deep inside, he still tried to hold on to a small hope that one day life might change. When Charlie was about 7 years old, a major event happened that completely changed his life. After many years of living in poverty and stress, his mother Hannah's mental health became weaker and weaker. She began to suffer from serious problems and could no longer take care of herself or her children as she once did. Eventually, the authorities had to send her to a hospital for people with mental illness. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. For Charlie and his brother Sidney, it was a huge shock. In a short time, the two boys had lost both their father and their mother. With no one left to care for them, they were placed into the government system for poor children. From that moment on, Charlie's childhood entered a completely different chapter, one that was even harsher and lonelier. Charlie and his brother Sidney were sent to a workhouse, a place for poor children who had no family to care for them. It was not like a school or a warm shelter. There, the children had to work many hours every day cleaning floors, washing clothes, and doing other hard tasks. The food was scarce, the sleeping rooms were cold, and the hard beds made it difficult for many children to sleep at night. Is less than hasero. 7 hash is greater than. For Charlie, this place felt like a dark world where childhood seemed to disappear too soon. But in the middle of those hardships, something special began to appear. Charlie discovered that he could make the other boys laugh with his funny gestures and strange walks. Those small bursts of laughter lit the first spark of hope in his life. And what happened next would completely change Charlie's destiny. So keep listening to this story. During the dark days in the workhouse, Charlie began to notice something special about himself. When the other boys felt sad or exhausted after a long day of work, Charlie would often make funny faces or walk in very strange ways. Sometimes he pretended to trip and fall, and sometimes he copied the way adults walked, just like the people he had seen on the streets. At first, these were only small jokes to forget the sadness. He is less than #0. 7 hash is greater than. But then something wonderful happened. The children around him began to laugh. For a few short moments, they forgot the hunger and the cold of that place. Those laughs made Charlie feel that he had value. For the first time in his life, he realized that he could bring joy to others. And that small ability would later grow into the talent that would change his entire life. As time passed, Charlie slowly grew older, and deep in his heart, he carried a small dream to stand on a stage just as his mother once had. When Charlie was about 14 years old, he heard that a small theater in London was looking for young actors. Even though he was very nervous, Charlie decided to go and try. His hands trembled as he walked into the audition room because he knew this might be the chance that could change his life. Is less than #0. 7 hash is greater than. The manager looked at him and asked a simple question. Can you act? Instead of answering with words, Charlie began to perform. He walked like an old man, then pretended to be drunk and stumbled across the room. Finally, he acted as if he slipped and fell. The manager burst out laughing. In that moment, Charlie received his first job on stage. And the door to the world of performance finally opened. After joining the theater troupe, Charlie began a new life on the stage. Together with the comedy group, he traveled across England, performing in small towns and crowded cities. Those days were not easy at all. The actors often had to travel on old trains, sleep in cheap hotels, and sometimes perform several shows in a single day. Charlie was often tired, but he never complained. Every performance was a chance to learn. Is less than #0. 7 hash is greater than. He learned how to use his body, his eyes, and his gestures to tell a story. He discovered that sometimes a single funny step or a perfectly timed expression could make the entire audience burst into laughter. Day by day, Charlie's skills improved and audiences began to remember him. The path out of poverty was slowly beginning to open. In 1910, a great opportunity suddenly appeared in Charlie's life. The theater troupe he was working with received an invitation to perform in the United States. At that time, many artists saw America as a land of opportunity, a place where dreams could become reality. When the ship left the port of England, Charlie stood on the deck, looking out at the vast ocean. Inside, he felt both excited and nervous. He did not know what was waiting for him ahead. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. But deep in his mind, Charlie understood that this could be the most important turning point in his life. When he arrived in New York, everything amazed him: the tall buildings, the crowded streets, and the fast pace of life. In that moment, Charlie knew that a new chapter of his life had truly begun. After some time performing across the United States, Charlie's unique talent gradually began to attract the attention of people in the entertainment industry. One evening in 1913, a comedy film producer named Mack Sennett watched Charlie perform on stage. He immediately realized that this small young man had something very special. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. After the show, he approached Charlie and made a surprising offer to join his studio and act in comedy films for a salary of $150 a week. For Charlie, it was an amount of money he had never even dreamed of before. However, Charlie had never acted in films and knew nothing about cameras or filmmaking. But great opportunities rarely come twice. After thinking for a moment, Charlie decided to accept the challenge. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. That decision opened the door that would lead him into the world of cinema. When Charlie began working in films, he quickly realized that acting in front of a camera was very different from performing on stage. In films, every movement could be seen up close, so actors had to be more subtle. One day, the director asked Charlie to find a very funny costume for a new scene. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. Charlie walked into the dressing room and started choosing strange pieces of clothing: a jacket that was too tight, pants that were far too baggy, oversized shoes, a tiny hat, and a cane. Finally, he drew a small mustache on his face. When he looked into the mirror, Charlie saw a completely new character appear. It was a poor wanderer, but one full of dignity and kindness. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. That character later became known as the Tramp, and it quickly became the most famous symbol of Charlie Chaplin's career. The character of the Tramp quickly captured the hearts of audiences everywhere. In every film, that little wanderer always faced difficulties, was always poor, yet never lost his kindness or hope. Audiences laughed at the humorous situations, while also feeling deeply moved by the character's sincerity. Charlie Chaplin's fame grew across the world. He was not only an actor, but also became a director and the creative force behind his own films. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. Works such as The Kid, The Gold Rush, and City Lights brought him to the very top of the film industry. People lined up outside movie theaters just to see the familiar character with the small hat, the cane, and the oversized shoes. From a poor boy on the streets of London, Charlie Chaplin had now become a living legend of the screen. Despite his enormous success, Charlie Chaplin's life was not always peaceful. In 1940, he created the film The Great Dictator, a powerful satire aimed at the dictator Adolf Hitler and authoritarian ideas. The film carried a deep message about freedom, kindness, and the unity of humanity. However, at that time, the world was filled with political tension, and not everyone supported Charlie's views. Is less than #0. 7# is greater than. Some people began to criticize him and question his political position. The U.S. government even opened investigations, and the pressure from the media grew stronger. In 1952, when Charlie left the United States to travel to Europe, the authorities canceled his visa. After more than 40 years of living and working in America, Charlie decided to move to Switzerland with his family and begin a new life there. 20 years after leaving the United States, a special moment finally arrived. In 1972, Charlie Chaplin was invited back to Hollywood to receive an honorary Academy Award for his tremendous contributions to cinema. When he stepped onto the stage, the entire audience stood and applauded for several minutes. One of the longest standing ovations in the history of the awards is less than #0. 7 is greater than. It was a recognition for a man who had brought laughter and deep emotion to millions of people around the world. Charlie Chaplin passed away in 1977, but his films and the character of the tramp continue to live on in the hearts of audiences everywhere. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. Learning English is a long journey, and historical stories like this can make that journey more interesting. If you enjoy learning in this way, continue exploring more stories on Echoes of History English. And perhaps in the next story we will discover another historical figure who changed the world.